welcome to episode 4 of the Salapaloosa Knits podcast. This is a podcast about knitting primarily, but also about making all the things in general. My name is Elizabeth and I'm coming to you from the beautiful city of Bergen in the western part of Norway, and this is where I live with my wonderful boyfriend, and I am currently working on my degree in business psychology. If this is your first time watching the podcast, welcome, thank you for giving my podcast a chance, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back, I really appreciate that. And also a big shout out to everyone who's been messaging me and giving me some wonderful feedback, and as always that is highly appreciated, so feel free to do that. If you want to get in touch with me, I am Salapaloosa Knits on Instagram, I am Salapaloosa on Ravelry, and if you have any questions or inquiries, feel free to pop me an email at salapaloosanknits@gmail.com. Alright, so that is the administrative bits out of the way. I'm just gonna have a sip of tea here. This, by the way, is one of my all-time favourites. It is the Harney and Sons Paris, and I love this tea so much. It's one of my absolute favourites, and they come in this gorgeous tea tin. There it is, Harney and Son Paris, and it is a black tea with natural vanilla, fruit and citrus flavours, and there's a little bit of bergamot in there, and I love this tea. I love this tea so much. It's my absolute favourite. And yeah, so hopefully this will be a really good episode because I'm all jacked up on Harney and Sons tea. Alright, back to business. So for the past week, as if you watched the previous episode, you may know that I had a huge exam a couple of weeks ago, and before that we didn't really have the possibility to put in a lot of knitting, and that just, you know, hurts my heart really, because you know, knitting makes me happy. So now that the exam is over, I still haven't gotten any feedback or results on it yet, but fingers crossed. Either way, I think it's best to keep busy knitting. Either if it's, you know, good news or bad news, I will have a lot of knitting in and feeling energized, I guess. So anyways, I have been knitting up a storm for the last weeks. I have 3 finished objects. No wait, I have 4 finished objects to show you guys. 4 finished objects. Can you believe that? I can hardly believe it myself, because as you know, I am a chronic sufferer of startitis, and I keep starting new projects all the time, and I can't help myself. And that means that I'm not the best at finishing projects, and yeah, enough about that. I have finished 4 objects, let's focus on that. And I have a half-finished object as well, and I'm going to start off with that, I think. So, last week I decided that it was about time that I cast on the monkey socks pattern by Cookie A. I've been admiring this pattern for a really long time, and I was on a bit of a mercury sock craze, and for quite a while, and that meant that I knit a lot of mercury socks, but not really any other socks, and well, it gets a bit boring after a little while, even though, don't get me wrong, I love the mercury socks pattern, and I am sure there are plenty of other mercury socks in my future. But I really wanted to knit the monkey socks, and so I cast them on using this glorious yarn that I showed off in episode 1. It is the Marisup Caano yarn. It is by Garn, and This yarn just makes my heart happy. I love it so much. I think it's so beautiful, and I can't stop staring at it. I love working with it, which is probably the reason why I finished a single monkey sock in, well, a couple of days really, and that was whilst working on other projects and finishing 4 projects as well. So yeah, as you can probably figure out by now, I love the monkey socks pattern and I love this yarn. Little bit, I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. I should talk a little bit more about the yarn. Like I said, it's by the company called Garn, and this is a Norwegian company that is doubles as a social integration company, and all the yarn is dyed by refugee women. And yeah, I'm not going to get all that much into it, but I think that that is just wonderful. And I'm going to show you the band really quickly. It doesn't really look that good because I've been carrying it around in my bag, but here it is. That's the colorway, and it is a 100% superwash merino. And intuitively that seems like a really bad idea for socks, because you know, a one ply tends to pill a little bit and there is no reinforcement in it. So I decided to use the Regia reinforcement yarn that I showed off in, also in episode 1 I believe, and I used that for the toes and heels. So without further ado, let me just show you. The first sock is finished and it is currently residing on my beautiful sock blocker by Woodico, and here it is. Lo and behold, the monkey socks. Oh gosh, I just love this. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the heels and the toes, because I am so pleased with how that turned out. Now the Regia reinforcement yarn, I'm just going to grab it, it's right here. It's just this simple plain greyish blue reinforcement yarn, so it's 100% polyamide I believe, and yes. Originally I thought that I would just replace the heel with this yarn, but I decided to try out using one thread of this yarn and one thread of the Karbonz beautiful yarn, and so 2 strands, and so I knit both the heel and the toe that way with 1 strand of each yarn, and I really love the way it came out. I feel like if I had used only the reinforcement yarn, then it would be rather harsh, the toe would have a bit of a harsh look to it. But now you get all these beautiful rainbow colours running through it, and I think that that looks really good, and it creates this super plump and sturdy fabric, and it is so comfortable. I have been wearing this one sock around the house for the past 24 hours really, since I finished it, and I don't want to take it off because I love it so much. So I had a little bit of a sizing conundrum with these socks. I usually find that a 48 stitch count is my preferred stitch count with sock patterns that are quite open and lacy, and so I decided to cast on 48 stitches, which works with the pattern. And I don't really like my socks to be too tall. I like them about an inch and a half above the ankle. And I do like the sock to be quite fitted and a little bit giving a sort of, well, hugging really, hugging fit. And so I cast on 48 stitches, and I knit that way all the way across the heel. This is the fish lips kiss heel, by the way, and around here. And then when I tried on the sock, I felt that it was a little bit tight around the instep, so I decided to do some increases on the sole of the foot. Just in plain stockinette, I increased 8 stitches on the sole of the foot. So that worked out really well. I feel like the fit is absolutely perfect. But now that it is blocked and finished and I've tried it on, I do feel like it is a little bit tight across the instep still, and it's not really too tight in regards to the feel of the sock on the foot, but in terms of it getting tears or holes or something, I'm a little bit worried about that. So the stitch pattern on the monkey socks is 16 stitches, and so if I were going to add on some stitches into the pattern for the second sock, it would have to be 16 more. And from 48, that is all of a sudden quite a few more stitches. But I decided to do that. I have cast on 48 stitches. No, 48, I'm sorry, 64 stitches. But I'm worried that that is probably going to be way too big. So what I'm thinking is that for the second sock, I can show you, but it's really not much to look at. I'm just cast on the cuff. Well, it is something to look at, I guess, because this yarn is just so glorious. I used a simple long tail cast on, and I guess I'm about halfway through the rib. Now, this is a 64 stitch count, which is a lot bigger than I usually cast on. So I'm thinking that I will maybe try to do the 64 stitch count down the leg and turn the heel and just above the instep, and then I might decrease it from the instep and for the rest of the foot. I'm not quite sure about it. I guess I'll just have to try it out and see how it goes, and if it doesn't work out, then I will probably just tink back and do it over, because I really love knitting these. I love the pattern and I love the yarn, and I mean, it's no problem to tink it back if it doesn't work out. So I'm going to try that anyways, and worst case I'll have one sock that's a little bit too loose and one that's a little bit too tight, but I'm sure we'll figure it out in the end. I'm knitting this on the Chaiogoo red lace needles. These are on 2.25mm needle, which is a size 1, a US size 1, and I'm knitting this on the 16-inch cables. Now, I have tried the 9-inch cables. I have a pair of the Chaiogoo red lace sock needles on the 9-inch cable, and I feel like the problem with the 9-inch needles is that the needle themselves are really short. They're about half of this one, and that is just, it hurts my hands to knit with it. So if the 9-inch cable would be on this size needle, I would absolutely love them. But I've never seen that, so I don't think that it exists, unfortunately. But I do like using the 16-inch cables. It feels like there's not that much extra time being put into pulling the cable through if you haven't noticed, I knit my socks magic loop always. That is my preferred method of doing it. Yes, so that is the monkey socks, and I'm sure I'll have the other one finished for you guys next week, as I love working on it and I can hardly put it down. And I knit this cuff just this morning. I had the most wonderful morning with just listening to some podcasts and doing a little bit of knitting, and oh yes, it was wonderful. And preparing the podcast, really. Yes, so that's the monkey socks. If you haven't knit them before, I highly recommend them. The pattern is so simple, it's very easily memorized, and I just love working on them. I love watching the yarn, and yes, I highly recommend them. I'm sure I'll knit a bunch of them, really. And also, while we're on the subject, they use quite little yarn. I think I used, I weighed the Garn sur yarn before starting the second sock, and I'd only used 22 grams for the entire first sock, which is quite little, which makes me really happy, because that means that I can probably get 2 pairs of socks for myself out of that yarn, which is lovely, because this is basically one of my all-time favourite yarns to work with and to look at, and it's just a joy, really. So if you have the option and you're looking for some hand-dyed yarn, go check out Garn sur. Okay, so I think we're just going to get on with a couple of the finished objects I have to show you guys. And first of all, I want to show you a project that was almost finished last week. I did not have a lot yet left. It was just finishing off the raglan decreases and the finishing. And of course, that is this adorable little child sweater right there. It is the Pikekyssgenser, and it is by the lovely Ane on Instagram. If you're not already, you need to go and follow her. She is just wonderful, really. And this is her first pattern, and I am so impressed with it. It is wonderfully written. It is so clear and detailed and precise, and it's clear that she has put a lot of work into this. And I just love this little detailing in the back with a little bow and the split in the back. I think that that is just so charming, and oh, I just love the way it looks, and I really want it for myself. Unfortunately, this is knit in the 2-year size, so it's not going to fit, but the joyful news is that she is making a grown-up size pattern, and I will most definitely make one of those for myself, and I might even get a start on it in the next week, because I do have the test version of the pattern to look through, and I might even get started on it. So this sweater is knit out of Drops Air, and I used my Knitpro Karbonz to knit it. I used my 4.5 and 5mm needles, and yes, like I said, it's just glorious. I went into quite a bit of detail on this in the last week's episode, so if you want to know more, you should definitely check that out. And it is just, it's wonderful. I love knitting it. It flew off my needles. I couldn't put it down, and it's so light and warm, and yes, now that I've showed it off, I'm just going to steam it one more time because it's gotten a little bit, well, a little unperfect from lying around waiting to be shown off. But I will steam it one more time and then I will send it off to a person who will get this as a birthday present, and hopefully they'll like it. What am I saying? Of course they're gonna like it. Look at it. It's like the most adorable thing ever. So if they don't, I will take it back and wear it as a cropped top, if that's what it takes. I love it so much. Alright, so that is the Pikekyssgenser. It is by Ane on Instagram. If you don't already, you should go and follow her because she is wonderful and brilliant. Now, the next project I'm going to show you is brand new. I did not show it off last week because I hadn't started on it. Sorry, not last week, on the previous episode. And it's a hat, and it's this one, and it's called Vinterturban. And it is by Gutten og Strikkemor on Instagram, and it is, I think it's so charming. It was so quick to knit. I think I knit this in about an hour and a half, because it's knit out of drops cloud, and it was knit on a 7mm needle, and I mean that's obviously going to go quite quickly. It's the wheat colorway in the drops cloud yarn, and well, I guess I could try it on, and you'll just have to excuse my hat hair later on. So here we go. Looks a little bit weird, I guess, inside, but it is just utterly charming and I love it. I think it's really different and I love the construction of it, and it was so just such an easy quick knit, and also I needed a hat, so that was just perfect. And although it does look a little bit like a turban, I guess, it also reminds me of those sort of 1950s handkerchief thingies. I don't know what they're called, but they are very charming and I do like the way it looks, and it reminds me a little bit about that. So, excuse the hat hair. Yes, so as I said, this was a super quick knit, and the pattern said that you would need a skein of drops cloud, and if I were to knit this again, I probably would get 2 skeins, because there was some intense yarn chicken happening in the end here, and as it turns out I had to do a lot of shortcuts and just make something up really in the end because there wasn't enough yarn. And I did use the called for needle size, and I did get the same gauge, so I don't know what happened. It didn't work out for me really, so if I were to make another one I would definitely just invest in 2 skeins instead of the one, because it's not fun to play yarn chicken, especially not when it comes to the top of the turban, because I mean you don't want a big gaping hole on top of your hat, although I guess if you wear ponytails on top of your head you could use that hole to put it through, which would look ridiculous, but if you like ridiculous, there you go. Alrighty, so that's the Vinterturban, and I have another finished object. Can you believe it? And you have seen this project before, and I did promise that I would finish it, and I have. And I'm sure you can guess what it is if you have watched my previous episodes. And of course it is the Kristianes Wavesweater sweater. So here it is. We have a seed stitch panel in the front. We have two lace panels going down on either side of the sweater. There is a garter stitch sleeve, and we have also the same lace panels going down the front, going down the top of the sleeve. I don't really know where to start with this sweater. I'm a little hesitant really, because I'm quite opinionated about this and I don't want to come across too harshly, I guess. So basically it was a quick knit, it was an easy knit in regards to the in regards to the actual knitting. When it comes to the pattern, however, it was a bit of a head scratcher. I did not enjoy the pattern. I thought that it was quite unclear, and that is a bit of an understatement. I felt like there was a lot of guesswork involved in this sweater, and yes, I think we're just going to leave it at that. If you like your patterns to be clear and easy to follow, I would say that you will probably not enjoy this pattern very much. I do like those things. I like patterns that are clear and easy to follow and well written, and let's just say that I wasn't a very big fan of this pattern. Another problem with this pattern is that there is a Danish design brand that has made a sweater that is almost exactly like this one, and the person who wrote this pattern basically just wrote down the pattern for that sweater, and I think that that is quite problematic really, because it's not your design, and if you want to do that for a garment for yourself, that's fine, I guess, but I think it's a little bit of a problem to how should I say this, to portray it as your own design and charge for it, because this is a paid for pattern. And yeah, that being said, it is difficult to write patterns. I absolutely understand that. It's not easy and it's not for everyone. So I do feel like if this is something that you're very good at, then you know you should write patterns, but it's not for everyone. Not everyone is good at it. That being said, the sweater itself turned out quite nicely, I guess. I did go down quite a few needle sizes. It called for I think a 9 or a 10mm, I can never remember, needle, and I decided to use a 7 because they didn't really have my size in the pattern. The pattern said it's for a small, medium or a large or extra large, and neither one of those really fits me very well, and with the sweater being very oversized as well, I decided that I would use a smaller needle and then just tighten up the lace a little bit and just see how it looked, and if I liked it then I would go ahead with it. And so I did, and I'm very glad I did, because it is quite large, the finished sweater. It's very, very oversized. And also, if I were to knit this over, I would definitely make a couple of adjustments to the sleeves, because I'm just going to show you, they are gigantically large, and I feel like they sort of hold me back a little bit. I'm afraid to drag them through things and get food on them, or just, you know, something. Yeah, it's really warm, so that's good, but this is not my favourite knit. I've knit quite a few garments that I like more than this. So that's that. Also, I ran out of yarn, and I again had a wild game of yarn chicken happening, and because of that I knit the neck a little bit shorter than the pattern called for. It's supposed to be quite a bit bigger actually. It's supposed to be about this tall, I guess, but I knit it a little bit shorter, and I think that that's fine because it's already so thick and warm, and if it were any bigger I would probably not be wearing it at all. So I'm glad I did that. Yes, so that is the Kristianes Wavesweater. Yes, I don't think I'm going to say too much about that actually, but it was a quick knit. It's a very simple, well, it's not difficult to knit, really. It's just a bit of a challenge to follow the pattern, I guess. Alright, so that is, how many is that? 3 finished objects. And you guys, I have another one, and I am so excited about this one. I need to take some tea to calm myself down before I start rambling on about the next finished object, because I'm so excited. Alright. Alright. So, for the cherry on top of this finished object cupcake, I was sent a pattern to have a look through by the amazingly talented Anna of the Dunkelgrün podcast, and if you haven't seen her podcast you really should. She is very talented and so charming, and I highly recommend it. If you have been watching her Instagram, she is Dunkelgrün on Instagram. She has posted some pictures of a beautiful little stuffy that she has designed, and his name is Unini, the magical unicorn, and boy oh boy, he is definitely magical, because this little guy made me into a process knitter. I'm not joking here. I know that this sounds totally made up. It sounds like a fairy tale, but this is absolutely true. I am a notorious project knitter, and you might think that that sounds weird because I'm you know, I have startitis and I can't help myself from starting all the things, but I do really want them to get finished, and that is sort of my motivation usually through my knitting, and my motivation to finish things is that I want to wear the garment or whatever it is. But knitting this little guy, I loved every second of it, and I really felt like a true process knitter. Now I know how you guys feel. It's quite wonderful, isn't it? and I didn't feel any rush finishing it. I just enjoyed every second of it, and which is wild really, because I finished it in 2 days. And if you haven't noticed, it's this little boy right here, and he is so cute. He is such a cutie patootie, and I'm so excited to show him off. Alright, so this is Unini. He is a magical unicorn, obviously. There is no question about that. And he is just the most precious little thing I have ever seen. Of course, he has a sparkly horn, he's got a sparkly mane, he's got a little braid in there. Look at that. And he's got a wonderful little tail. I love the way he looks, and I loved making him. And if you have any children in your life, you should make them a little stuffy, and that stuffy should be a unicorn, and the unicorn should be Unini. He is so cute, and it was, I feel like I've been on a little bit of a tangent about patterns and patterns who are poorly written lately, but this one, you guys, this is just probably one of the best patterns that I have ever read. It is so clear, and it is so just so well written, and it was so easy to follow. It was hand holding, but not you know, exaggeratedly, and it was just such a joy. It's very detailed. The pattern was, I think it was about 10 pages, and don't be alarmed by that. It's just because it's so detailed and well put together, and there are some wonderful figures in it, and she shows you, well, she writes every technique you need to know, she writes every notion you need, she writes optional notions, and it's just so clear. And also she has written this, like, after all the increases and decreases, she has like an updated line about, or an updated sentence about how many stitches you should have on your needles at that point, which I found immensely helpful. And it's so well written, and I really want to make another one. I have 2 nephews and 3 nieces, and I'm just thinking that they all need unicorns, really. Like I said, I knit this in 2 days. Now, granted, there is quite a few hours of knitting in there. I worked some night shifts all weekend from last week to this week, and I work in a psychiatric hospital, and everyone was sleeping, and it was really quiet and not much for me to do really, other than to be there and, you know, be available. So I started to just read through the pattern, and I read through it multiple times, and I made notes, and just really just sort of dived into it, and I couldn't help myself. I had to cast it on. There was no way that I could stop myself. I had to try making this unicorn, and after reading the pattern I knew that it would be a joy. And also, looking at the pictures, I knew that he was the most charming thing ever. So the pattern calls for a DK weight yarn, and I did not have any DK weight yarn available at that moment. And like I said, it was in the middle of the night, and you know how it is. inspiration struck, and I just had to cast it on immediately. So for that reason I decided to use some fingering weight yarn for the unicorn, and Anna says that you can use a fingering weight yarn for if you want to make a smaller unicorn, and a bulkier weight yarn if you want it to be bigger. And I thought that it would be just charming if it were a little bit smaller, so I didn't mind that, and I knit it out of my Knitpro Karbonz on the 2.5mm needle, which I guess sounds a little bit crazy to knit a stuffy on fingering weight yarn on 2.5mm needles, but it was so much fun and I loved every minute of it. And I could absolutely use a little bit of a thicker needle, I guess, but I really wanted to have a very dense fabric for Unini, so that he would be just have a lovely feel and squishiness to him, and so that the filling would stay in place. And yeah, anyways, the construction of this is brilliant. I learned a lot from knitting it, and I don't know, I'm just literally running out of words and I'm so excited. Okay, another sip of tea, that might help. Alright, I love it. So I knitted I started it on Saturday, and I knitted on Saturday night and Sunday night. And I knit all the different bits and bobs, and then I did the finishing on Monday. Now there are a little bit, well, there are quite a few fiddly bits with the finishing, but I like the fiddly bits. That sounded really weird. Alright, sorry about that. Anyways, I do like the finishing. I like the attaching the mane and sewing everything together and watching him come to life, and the tail, and it was just so much fun doing it and figuring out how to do it. Now Anna's unicorn is has this rainbow coloured mane and tail, which is also really lovely, and yes, it's so charming. Now I really like that he is a little plump around the tummy. My boyfriend said that he had a rather distinct pear shape, but I think he's adorable, and you know, there's nothing wrong with pear shapes. Not in people, and definitely not in unicorns either. And I think it's very cute that he has a little bit of a belly, and he's a little bit heavy on the backside. And yes, I used a lot of scrap yarn for the tail and the mane, but the body itself is knit out of Nordlys by Viking yarns, which is this gorgeous variegated colour inspired by the Northern Lights. Yes, yeah. Anna of Dunkelgrün, Unini the Magical Unicorn. You need to go and follow her. You need to subscribe to her podcast, follow her on Instagram, and as soon as the pattern releases, you need to get it and make it. And even if you don't usually make stuffies, I'm sure you'll have the option or the possibility to do so one day, and then it would just be wonderful to have the pattern already when inspiration strikes. And I'm sure I'll knit more of them. I absolutely love him, and I cannot recommend him highly enough. yes, and again, Anna is just so lovely and so charming and talented, and you should definitely go and support her. And yes, so that's that. So that's all for my finished objects this week. I guess that a 4 finished objects in one episode, that's probably not going to happen very often, so let's all just take a moment and enjoy that. Crazier things have happened. Alright, so on to my acquisitions. I don't have tons of things to show you this week, but it is my birthday month, and my birthday is I had a total American accent there for a second. My birthday is on October the 21st, and because of that, well, let's just say that when it's my birthday month, I'm known to spoil myself a little bit, and it's very handy to have an excuse to spoil yourself, and birthday month means just that. So that I do have quite a few things in the mail coming my way, hopefully quite soon, but I do have a skein to show you this week as well. And this is a skein by Vicky Brown Designs. She is Vix Brown on Instagram, and her Etsy shop is vickybrowndesign.com it says. Well, I got it on Etsy, so she's there as well, apparently. And this is the skein that I got. Now this has been in my favourites on Etsy for quite a while, and it looks quite blue on the screen. Such a rainy day outside. I hope you can see sort of what it looks like. It is actually quite purple and lilac, and it's got these little spots of blue running through, and of this gorgeous green, sort of mustardy green up here, which is just lovely. This is her Wisteria colorway, and it is a 4-ply sock yarn. It is a, let's see, a 75 superwash merino and a 25 nylon. I really like the 75-25 combo. I think that it is just so plump and lovely. Oh, look at this section right here. Look at that gorgeous speckliness. I love speckled yarn, in case you haven't noticed. I feel like speckled yarn is my kryptonite, really. It's amazing. I love it. And oh gosh, you know, just looking through it and opening up, I can see all these beautiful speckles in here that I haven't even noticed before, so I'm even more excited now. And yeah, it's beautiful, and I don't really have any obvious plans for it, but now I just want to make monkey socks out of all the yarn, really. So they might be some monkey socks. I'm not sure. Gosh, this would make an adorable unicorn as well. We'll see. I will let you know. But Vicky Brown Designs, she has a lot of beautiful stuff in her Etsy shop, and this shipped quite quickly, and it got here quite quickly, so that is always a big bonus, and that makes me really happy. So yeah, that's the acquisitions for this week. Alright, I think that's it for the knitty content of this week, and yes, I'm just gonna ramble on for a minute. Yeah, like I said, I've been working night shifts, and I mean, that's fine, but it does have a toll on your body and make you quite tired. At least that's what happens to me. I get quite sleepy and tired throughout the week. I don't have as much energy as I usually do when I have multiple night shifts. And yeah, I've also had a bit of an issue with migraines for the last week, which isn't very fun, and fortunately I'm all better now, but that's primarily the reason why this week's episode was a little bit behind schedule. So I hope you can forgive that. And yeah, but the night shifts themselves were quite quiet, and I got to knit a little bit and listen to some of the backlog of the Knit More Girls podcast when it was quiet, so that was wonderful. They are utterly charming, and if you haven't, you should definitely check out their podcast. It is just wonderful and delightful, as they say. Well, they don't say it about themselves, but they do talk a lot about delightfulness, which is wonderful, and I find quite charming. Anyway, that's probably it. That's my week. It's been quiet. I've been tired. Yeah, but I have gotten quite a bit of knitting done, which is very exciting and makes me very happy and makes my heart happy, and yeah, so that's good. I've been watching quite a bit of American Horror Story, and I'm not really into the whole horror scene. It's not my cup of tea. I don't particularly enjoy being frightened and jumpy, and I don't really enjoy it. But I found that show is quite well written and well produced, and it's a bit gory at times, but it's also quite entertaining and a little bit scary. I've watched it quite a few episodes when my boyfriend was off at work, especially when he worked night shifts, which he does quite often. So when he's off working night shifts, I've been watching American Horror Story because he'd seen the 3 first seasons and I hadn't seen any of it. So he said that if I watched it, we could watch it together after that, and I thought that was a great idea. But it's really scary to watch it alone, you guys. I had a big blanket, and thank goodness I had my knitting with me, because, you know, I just needed an excuse to look away. And also, yeah, it just, let's just say that it shows in my gauge that it was a little bit scary, because my gauge is so tight from where I know I was knitting and watching American Horror Story. But it is good, it's quite good. I've seen the entire first season, and I just finished the second season as well. So I've gotten quite a big bite of that apple out of the way, and I'm faithfully and joyfully looking forward to watching season 3. And yes, if you like scary things and a little bit gaudy things and stuff like that, you should give it a try. It's quite entertaining and yeah, a little bit scary, but grab your knitting and a big blanket and some tea and you'll probably be alright. And lock the doors, that's a big one. Alrighty, I think that's it for this week. Thanks so much to everyone who's been watching. If you're still with me throughout my rambling, I appreciate it. If you have any questions or inquiries, feel free to pop me an email or comment or whatever. Send me a message on Instagram or Ravelry. I try to respond to everyone quite promptly, so yes, feel free to do that. And yes, thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you guys in a little bit. Goodbye!